I am going to beat you into the living death.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Walkout Network. It's your man, Ant Walker, here with the latest edition of the Living Death Show. Very happy to introduce a new face on the program, a gentleman I've gotten acquainted with quite some time, a couple of years ago. I think we first crossed paths. He is the host of the MMA Power Hour. You can catch him on Twitter, doing Twitter Spaces, giving you guys some needed discussion about the sport of mixed martial arts. Let's welcome Colin Crandall to the panel. Colin, how you doing today, my man?
Doing great, and happy to be here with you, man. Respected you for a long time, known you for a while, and even the masthead of one of my social medias shows me with the microphone at a UFC event, and you were one of the faces in the background.
Oh, really? Okay.
You're way up there at the top of my social media.
Yeah, I'm somewhere in the background of a lot of stuff. It's I'm like a ghost throughout the sport of mixed martial arts.
Somewhere in the background of a lot of stuff is a really good Twitter bio.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's time for my Twitter bio to be updated. I'm with you on
mean
that
guy.
I know, right?
Excited to be here, though. Really.
Yeah, definitely, man. We're going to have a great time today. And, of course, the show goes down every week with the two gentlemen you see at the bottom that need no introduction, but we love them so much we do it anyway. First up is the jack of all trades who has mastered them all. He is the senior editor of Sherdog.com and the big homie, Ben Duffy. Ben, what's going on today?
I'm doing really well. Always good to have a fourth here. Good to kind of interact with Colin face to face, as it were, for the first time, and you guys as usual.
Of course, and the man who anchors the panel every week with the stats, the facts, the figures, and the numbers. He is the associate editor of Sherdog.com. Also, my good friend Jay Petrie. What's going on? Whoa! Let me take a sip. Let's try that again. What's going on today, brother?
Hey. It is a very interesting Monday after a very interesting set of weeks. So in light of my usual stat of the week, I don't have one because I have all of them, and I'll explain why. Every year for Sherdog, the past several years actually, I've written a year-end review piece about all of the happenings in the UFC, all of the happenings in Bellator, all of the happenings in PFL. The UFC's is up now, and maybe the stat of the week should have been like 3,900 because that's how many friggin' words it is. It is massive, ridiculous. It is a cheap plug, but let me tell you, it has everything you're going to want to know about what the heck happened in the UFC last year. I even got a chance to talk about my best buddy, Askar Mozarov. So if that doesn't sell you, I don't know what does. So yes, my stat of the week is now 3,900 because that's the amount of words in that dick mark.
Askar Mozarov's record is now -3 and 40. as Jay has just continued to like shovel dirt onto this poor steroided man.
He is actually legitimately now 15 and 14 in case that you hadn't kept track.
Quit while you're ahead, motherfucker.
Because we found more. We found more afterwards, and we talked to our people and one of the referees was assigned. He's like, yeah, I wasn't in the country when that fight card never happened. So we're like, oh, okay. So yes, 3,900.
Wow. Yeah, the Fight Finder detective work continues. So I would highly recommend anyone who's watching this that has not checked out Jay's weekly Fight Finder files article, give it a look-see. I am very happy my time at Sherdog, I did not touch the Fight Finder. So all praises due to you, Jay. That is nuts. So so you guys notice I'm trying to be jovial right now. I'm trying to be upbeat because quite honestly, we don't have a lot of upbeat things to talk about. In fact, it's probably one of the, not probably, by far the worst sort of mood I've had going into this. Every week I kind of have, I joke with you guys about this all the time. I have this existential crisis every week. Like, I don't feel like doing the show. I want to make beats. I want to go back to sleep. I want to go to the gym, blah, blah. And then I see your faces. We start talking about the fights, and I'm like, I'm happy again. We're back at it. We're rocking. Especially we got a guest, someone that I'm very fond of. I'm happy to get on this program and talk about some fights because I love them so much. But this has been a particularly difficult week since we last recorded. Literally 20, 30 minutes after we wrapped up recording last week's show, some terrible news broke, and it just kept coming in and kept rolling in, revealing layers of this community that continue to bother me. But I'm gonna jump a little bit out of order so we can get the worst news out of the way, and then we talk about some more terrible things. I think we all were in a lot of shock, a lot of hurt feelings to see the tweets and Instagram posts and whatnot memorializing 18-year-old Victoria Lee, the little sister of Christian and Angela Lee, champions at One Championship. And she passed away the day after Christmas, according to the post that Angela Lee put up. 18 years old. The cause of death has not been released as of this recording. And judging by the words that were used in Angela Lee's post, I think we have an idea of what may have happened, but I don't want to go on record as saying that without the family ready to talk about some of those details. But not a lot you can say to make the death of an 18-year-old feel any better or ease the pain in any way. But let's just briefly share something positive in memorial of Victoria Lee.
I don't have anything positive, man. I am not a news writer by trade. I joined Sherdog about 5 years ago as an op-ed and feature writer and moved from there into, primarily editing and podcasting at this point, though I still write a good number of features. So if I write a news piece for Sherdog, it's usually because something terrible happened overnight or on a weekend when I was the guy at the stick. Kid Yamamoto dies on a Sunday. I'm the guy writing the obit. It was tough for me to write an obituary for someone who's younger than all of my kids. Like, as you said, we don't know what happened. Like the family, Angela's statement, which is really the closest thing we have to a statement from the family, didn't specify, though the implication is there. A few other people that claim to know the family have confirmed that. But if that's really what this was, if it really was an 18-year-old taking her own life, considering the situation, considering the position she's in, she had been scheduled to fight this week after over a year away. This is the worst thing that's ever happened in MMA. And I don't say that easily. This is a sport where tragic and senseless and criminal things have happened from the beginning. Some incredibly terrible people have passed through this sport. We've had murders. We've had rapes. We have people in prison for life. But this is the most heartbreaking thing that's ever happened news-wise directly related to mixed martial arts. It is absolutely horrible.
I am or became a news writer, as it were, working with Sherdog, kind of fell into that role, and I have written my fair share of obits. I'm glad I didn't. This is I'm glad I didn't have to write this one, and I don't know how better to say that because of just how seriously when I heard about this news and I was talking, we were talking about it on the Sherdog staff Slack. I had just seen it and was just about to put it out there before one of our colleagues posted it. It stunned me because I read the statement, I read what Angela wrote, and I read the last paragraph, and it hit me in a way that I'm not going to make any point to any direction or anything like that. You can make up your own mind. But I felt it in my core. A kid that, you think of what she was dealing with at the time. She was the youngest sister, the prodigy. I'm surprised they didn't try and force the nickname of the prodigy on her just to make her that much more uncomfortable.
It is her nickname.
Yeah. Exactly. Of two champions two highly acclaimed fighters at one championship, the people that, you know, that the company is trying to push at best, and is driving Victoria to become the insert something here, the champion, the future of the sport, all of the terms that you want to put there. At 17, 16, when she was dealing with this, because she took the year off in 2022 for reasons that, you know, we've heard back and forth. A 16-year-old having to deal with all that, all of the pressures and everything like that. Me, a well/maladjusted kid, depending on what day you were talking to, back when I was 16 or 17, I don't know how I'd handle it, but I don't think it'd be well. It is truly heartbreaking, the situation, and you know, beyond all the future was ahead of her, everything like that, just to see what she had to deal with, and this is what happened, and it's something I wouldn't wish on anybody, and this is success that she was experiencing. This was pride, this was love, this was admiration, and everything put into it was a pressure that is just an insurmountable, whatever it may have been, put together. Just, yeah, I can't, like, I think of Joe's son and all the horrible things he has done, for as an example, when he went to prison, after he went to prison, all of that, and I don't feel as personally hurt or sad or what have you as I do when we lost Victoria. And I don't know it. Yeah, I'm feeling verklempt here, so please, Colin and take the wheel.
Ant, you want to go first or me?
Yeah, go ahead, Colin.
Okay. Yeah, I agree 100% with what Jay and Ben said. Very, very devastating. Just awful news that someone at that age, that's the first year you become an adult, and essentially you're gone. It's tragic. I had my connection, just like in a really loose way, with Victoria Lee was that there was a year period where I interviewed like every one championship champion, and I was trying to get Angela, and she was pregnant, and I had done a great interview. I felt it was an enjoyable interview with Christian Lee, and I wanted Angela, and they said, you know, she's pregnant, she doesn't want to talk to anybody. You want Victoria, who's 16 years old. And something didn't really sit right about that for me. I'm not going to go off on that angle, but I said, I don't know. I mean, it'd be illegal for her to be fighting in this country, and Singapore apparently it isn't. But I said, you know, I'm not sure that I want to lend my name to something that could be criticized like that, or even how I feel. If I had a 16-year-old daughter, I don't know that I'd be having her fighting adult women in MMA. However, that's not a crack on anyone or a criticism. But in retrospect, I kind of wish that I had not made that choice, so I could have had some great conversation with her. But either way, none of that matters. It's just a tragic loss. It's terrible. She was on track to be possibly a champion, or at least a standout fighter based on her genetics, and her brother and sister in her corner, the Lees, I think, are the first family of one championship, and I know Chattery really respects them, and they get a push, and she would have continued to get a push. I just hope that there wasn't any evidence that it was the pressure of being a pro fighter, or that she didn't want to be a pro fighter, because I mean, as if it couldn't be more sad, that would make it even sadder. So I hope that's not the case. I hope whatever caused whatever to happen did not have anything to do with that, because I'd hate to think that she so much didn't want to fight or be a fighter that caused her possibly to want to end her life, if that's what happened. But it's just terrible, awful, devastating. I think you're right. Whichever one of you said, this is the worst news ever to come out of our world of MMA. 100%, I co-sign that.
Now, Ant, real quick, there's another little addition, according to the South China Morning Post, that the Lee family have closed their gym, United MMA in Hawaii, permanently closed. Not we're temporarily going to be out, we'll be gone. The site is saying we're done. That the gym is closed, that we're gone. I don't know if that it's just that's a
I mean, I understand that in response to such a horrific family tragedy. I'm trying to compose myself in a way because I've talked about this particular aspect about what has changed with me since becoming a father on this show a couple of times before, depending on what sort of bad news came across our desk before we recorded. And when I hear a child, like 18 might legally be an adult, but you are a child. I can't help but think about my own small children. I can't help but think about how much of an idiot I was at 18, how much of an idiot I was at 16, 17, and just this untapped potential that no matter what, the fact that she was on track to be a belt holder in a major mixed martial arts promotion means absolutely nothing. This is a child that had the potential to be anything she wanted to be, and that's the part that I'm mourning right here. We will have plenty of fighters. We will have plenty of great young fighters that will replace the crop of old great fighters. That's never going to stop as long as combat sports is still a business model. But we don't want to lose track of the fact that this is an 18-year-old young lady and what that means for life in general. I don't know if I don't believe I've mentioned this on this show at all. I know you guys know because, we talked right after this happened, but very early on into the pandemic, my younger cousin that I was very, very close to took his own life. And I still struggle on a daily basis thinking about him. And this was a man in his 30s, and I think of the potential that he had and what the world has lost with him being gone. And now you roll that clock back, by 15, 18 years or so. And like, wow, there's just so much more life that's gone. And I had to sit my phone down and just kind of just look away and, start cleaning up the house or something, just anything to take my mind off of this, because this is one of those things where whether I was a fight fan or a media personality or whatever you want to call me in this field, this would still hurt. This is an 18-year-old young lady who deserved to live her full life and be whatever she wanted to be and reach her potential. So, yeah, that's the tragic part about it. We'll have plenty of fighters, but unfortunately will never be another Victoria Lee. So, rest in peace, young lady. And I don't even know what to say to the Lee family or to anyone that was close to her. But you are in our thoughts. Well, gentlemen, let's keep things pushing because I don't think this is going to put a smile on our faces either. About half hour after we recorded last week, TMZ broke the news. UFC president Dana White in a quote unquote physical altercation with his wife on New Year's Eve at a nightclub in Cabo San Lucas. There are many, many, many different angles that we can take on this, and we are going to get to them for sure. We're going to get to them, but this is the first one that I want to tackle, gentlemen. The way this news broke,
yes,
that speaks volumes to me. This news came out via TMZ, complete with an article and a full video interview breaking this news that was what this incident occurred, 2 or 3 days before, before we got any word of this. Fellas, let's talk about it. How does this happen? How does a quote unquote news source break something in this fashion?
I'll break it down for you.
Can I be loud for a second? When has this ever happened in TMZ?
Never.
Where they break a story of an outrageous something happens, there's an incident, there's an accident, there's something happened, and they already have the side having their mea culpa. And they already have a statement from the other party that is sort of covered. When has that ever happened in a
Jay,
TMZ breaking story.
you are spot on, because if you guys can remember, like the day Michael Jackson died, this is one of many examples. The day that Michael Jackson died, TMZ broke that before anyone else, and without any real confirmation from family members. They had sources within the hospital or law enforcement or whoever, and they were telling that story before anyone else. There have been many stories where celebrities have died, or celebrities have been shot, or been in some horrific accidents, or all sorts of horrible things have happened, and they are the first. If I remember correctly, they broke Kobe Bryant as well.
Yeah.
I think I'm remembering that correctly.
I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
So how is it that you have news from, like, major news, a serious incident taking place with one of the most powerful people in the entertainment business, and not just sports, one of the most powerful people in the entertainment business, the man at the helm of a $4.2 billion company. And we have something 2 days later complete with responses from all involved parties.
And
Man.
the weird thing, and sorry to jump in if I did it, you guys. The weird thing is virtually nobody's questioning this. If you notice, one of the first things that I thought about, especially since he now has a slap fighting league, one of the first things I thought, is this a red herring? Is this a fake? Is this a setup? And I didn't put it out there in print and media in any way, but I started thinking, well, I'm going to hear a lot of people echoing that. I've heard nobody echoing that except for us right here. Everyone pretty much said, this got to be real, but it's very odd, isn't it? And you guys are even more an expert than me probably on the process of TMZ getting stuff and news outlets getting stuff, working with Sherdog. But, it's very weird to me, and I'd like your guys' opinions on it to see if any of you guys think maybe somehow it is a setup. But I'm sorry if I'm jumping first other than that, but since I'm talking, I might as well finish my thought. So appreciate it, guys. So the interesting thing is there's a 50-50 now. People, and this doesn't work in my virtual background. People are on both sides of the coin here about not only that it happened, but everyone's talking about who was right. And you have the people on the side saying no one should ever put their hands on a woman. And then you have the people on the side saying if a woman is a human being, and if a woman assaults someone, they have a right to either defend themselves, but then people say he wasn't defending himself, he could have walked away, blah, blah. I mean, I know you guys, I think, are on that edge of millennial Generation X, whereas I'm fairly deep into Gen X. And I know that we were always told, don't ever put your hands on a woman. Although I think times were a little bit different. I have to say, not to try to sound misogynistic, but I think in the 70s and 80s, women generally were a little bit more well-behaved and weren't really as physical. They weren't lifting weights at the gym and other stuff, and you had a lot of 115-pound women, where nowadays you have a lot of 135-pound women. But nevertheless, I don't know. It looked to me like she hit him really hard, and he looks like he thought about it for a second, threw up his hand, kind of threw a halfway slap. The impact that she had, even though she was probably 70 pounds lighter than him, looked like a hell of a lot more than the impact that his strike threw. But needless to say, people have to draw their own conclusions, and I don't want to jump in the middle of on that controversy and take a side. But just a weird, bizarre thing. I'm curious to see if you guys think there is a possible that's a setup and then it's a pump for the slap fighting league, and if so, I really think it was probably a very bad idea to be a fake and to be publicity for the slap fighting league, which now has been pulled, at least temporarily, from TBS or whatever the hell it was on.
Gentlemen, let me address this one. I do not think this was a work in any way, shape, or form. This was a real incident, and if this was a work, this would be the absolute worst idea known to man, because people lose their careers, people lose their freedom, people lose a lot of things that they hold dear to them for incidents like this. So I don't even want to entertain that sort of speculation. As far as the setup, though, the setup is in TMZ breaking the story the way it was broken. Ben, and I know you can speak to this as well. Like, TMZ seems to know when people are going to be at certain restaurants and shopping at certain places, and they're standing right there, right when the person's coming out to ask them a question that becomes a soundbite. Remember the soundbite that became an echo thing as Ronda Rousey was on her ascent. Dana White's leaving a restaurant, I think, in Beverly Hills, and they ask him about women fighting in UFC. Oh, that'll never happen, and that becomes a soundbite. This is a strategic partnership. They get the scoop on certain things, and in return, they give them a soft touch. There's no way a story like this breaks like that without people having handshake deals behind closed doors. It doesn't happen.
Oh, absolutely. And you don't even have to make some sort of nefarious, like prearranged scene out of it. Whoever took that video on New Year's Eve in Cabo, if they wanted to, that thing could have been on YouTube or TikTok in literally 5 minutes. They could have monetized it, just gone and run. My guess would be that person was savvy enough to put out the feelers to someone like TMZ. TMZ buys exclusive rights to it, and then they get, well, probably not with Dana since he was still drunk and angry and bright red, but, you know, got in touch with Dana's people, and TMZ all of a sudden makes a lot more money off of that video than they would have simply by running a story immediately. I mean, the amount of manipulation of the message, the amount of spin, the amount of massaging that went into this. One of my earliest op-eds for Sure Dog, I jokingly called TMZ the UFC's Ministry of Information and PsyOps wing, and it was less applicable then than it is now. Like, for as much as, you know, I kind of look sideways at ESPN and its, you know, whoever its current talking heads are, being such a friendly forum for the UFC, they got nothing on TMZ. Like, TMZ in this functioned purely as a PR department for Dana White personally.
Agreed.
I mean, they sat on a potentially damaging story and allowed him to get out in front of it ahead of its release.
This came out. Let's be clear here. This came out officially at 4:24 on the 2nd. So that means that this incident happened December 31st. This came out at about 4:30 days later. This is TMZ. Like, I again, you don't have to have the tinfoil hat. You don't have to even think conspiracy to know that there was an arrangement with UFC and TMZ, because there is. Like, that was made official a long time ago as not quite a branch of their news wing, but yes, this is something that has been off the books for years. And if I'm saying something that apparently isn't official, it's because I know about it, because I've been in this sport for long enough, I guess. And that's what makes it okay. No, that's not what makes this a problem for me. But that is before you even get into what actually happened, there is an inherent flaw, an inherent problem, an inherent anything about the very presentation of how this happens. And again, maybe I'm going to play hypothetical for a second. If this had happened to Roger Goodell, this would have been out 35 minutes after it happened. There would have been no statement from Goodell. There would have been no anything. That would have been, we were told this, we saw this, more to come. That's how it always is for TMZ articles, for breaking this and breaking that. It's the more to come. This was a complete release when it came out.
This was a press release.
There has been nothing added to it. There was an interview with Dana. I call it an interview because that is the actual definition of what transpired there. But in terms of the questions that were asked and what was posed to Dana White, it defies description, honestly. You're not asking him any real questions here.
Yeah, they even lobbed some soft touches at him in that whole
in
fiasco.
In the whole of the whole thing, the article text itself wrote things like both were heavily intoxicated. Further, quote, further, we're told the conflict was all over in less than a minute. That is the kind of sentence that de-escalates, defuses what happens.
Yeah.
That would almost seem like an editorial comment.
Not like a breaking news piece. Yeah.
Because why would you feel to add that unless you're taking it down a notch? And that, I mean, we'll get to the actual Dana White striking his wife, regardless of how you feel he struck for her. She hit him, he grabbed her, the mechanics of that. A really poor video that, by the way, was very heavily edited. How do you know it was very heavily edited? Because it just so happened to start then. No, it didn't. No, it didn't. That video was not somebody just hit record at that exact second that Dana White was struck by his wife. No, 0% chance. That's not how this works. It's not how any of this works. I'm in news. There's more to the video that we will never see. And that is as much of a problem to me before we even get into what happened.
Jay, spot on with that. We're just gonna jump out in this part of the discussion about whether it was right. Colin, I've got to throw some serious pushback your way on this, because the idea that this has anything to do with women being well behaved in the past, I can't stand by that. This was obviously an unfortunate situation where both parties are wrong in what they're doing, but as the bigger, stronger, actual fight trained person, you have a responsibility. Colin, I'm not sure if you're married. Ben, I know you are. I am. You take your vows for your wife. You are making an oath to protect her. Protecting your loved one, the mother of your children, the person that you've decided you're going to spend the rest of your life with, does not involve striking her in a situation where your life is not threatened. If I believe Ann is her name, if Ann White pulled a butcher knife out in that scenario and Dana cold cocked her, okay, his life was literally in jeopardy. This woman who's much smaller than him, she should have put her hands on him. She should not have done that. That is wrong. And even if she lands that strike and his instant response is just a quick hit back, wrong. But when you're talking about motor reflexes and stuff, okay, you're getting into some uncomfortable territory, but all right, you might be able to pass it off as a motor reflex. But when you go after her,
strike number two, and
strike
then
number two,
further
and then
movements.
Yes, we are all the way in the wrong. All the way in the wrong. And that's not taking into account the responsibility you have as the man, as the stronger, bigger, physically more imposing person to show restraint. I have been in situations in past relationships where I've been struck. My response was not to deck the young lady that did it. That was not the response, because as someone who was bigger and stronger and actually trained how to properly fight someone, that would have been inappropriate for the situation. That would have been excessive. When we look at self-defense laws, there's only a point that you can go to. If you were to punch me in the face and my response was to take off a double-barrel shotgun and blow a hole through your chest, well, I've exceeded the amount of force necessary to contain the threat. And that's what we saw. In addition to the level of just fuckery that has resulted from the various personalities in the sport since. So I wanted to speak my piece on that. Fellas, add whatever you like.
Can I just add one thing really quick before you guys go in? I'll make it really quick. I respect you, Ann, for pushing back, and I respect everything you're saying. I think the one element that you didn't address that comes into play here is the fact that it was caught on camera in public. I would not be surprised if it was in the privacy of their own home or some private box or private room in a restaurant where nobody else was there and there was no cameras, nothing like that. If Dana White may not have done that, but there is the element of looking like some kind of a punk where you're going to let someone, whatever sex, smack you in the face and not respond. And I do feel it is possible that being a media guy, and he's a generation deep in a Generation X guy like myself, and even though we knew better, we're taught better, some of that may have hit him like, okay, I have a second to think. Am I just going to sit here with my arms down and let someone smack me in the face and read the comments and the memes on that, or am I not? And I feel like that could have been part of his consideration to say, no, I'm not going to be reading those memes because I'm not going to let someone smack me in the face.
I certainly hope that wasn't part of his thought process, because I'll say the same thing that I said when we discussed the numerous issues involving BJ Penn. Be an adult, be a man, be better. You have to be mature. There are a lot of things that are going to happen that you're not going to like, and a lot of things that are going to irritate you, upset you, etc., etc. You have a responsibility as an adult to function like an adult. That was not a functional adult response. That was excessive and abusive. And behind closed doors too is a whole nother scenario. I have a very difficult time believing that that's the first time that that's ever happened between the two. And in fact, we've seen the resurfacing of the interviews with Dana White's mom, where she recounted some stories of violence between Dana and Ann. So,
good point.
This is not. I don't feel that we should be in any way excusing this behavior or
I agree.
Or giving past. And I will commend Dana for not giving himself excuses in the soft touch that TMZ was giving him. He wasn't taking the full bait as far as the drinking and whatnot. You are, as an adult, when you walk out the door, you are to be an adult and to be functional and to do what you're supposed to do and not do what you're not supposed to do. Full stop.
Can I sort of break from the outline a little bit to ask a kind of a more overarching question here?
Of course.
Because the next logical topic is, what should the UFC do, right? That should just because he is the president of the organization. But this story broke January 2nd. Currently we are recording. It is January 9th. And the only actual statement on any sort of record that I am aware of, other than no comment, which in itself is tough, is the TMZ statement that was released.
That is strange.
There has been, ESPN has stated specifically, we handle the broadcasting. UFC is the content, so speak to the UFC about this matter. TBS, I believe, who is hosting the Power Slap competition we'll get into in a minute, has said, I don't believe anything. And the UFC has been silent. And the parent company of Endeavor, which also would have the chance to say something, has also declined to comment. So I guess my question to all of you guys is, what the hell? How is this silence persisting? How is it even... we see incidents like these happens in other sports, and we see a black box with white text that says the so-and-so team does not stand with this. We believe in this, and we say this. That it's stock, it's rote. It doesn't mean as much, but it's a statement that happens. We didn't even get that. We didn't get anything. So should we? Why didn't we? Any of these things? Take it away, Ben. I think you probably are keen on this right now.
Many people have pointed out almost since the story broke that the head of any other sports league would have been out of their job at the Ask Rackathon the next morning.
Absolutely.
Likely. Very likely.
Dana White clearly operates under the assumption that this is not going to affect him at all. I mean, 3 or 4 days after the story broke, less than a week after the actual incident took place, he was eating a fucking fried bologna pie with mustard on it. Like, could you get more fuck it of a fuck it Friday than, yeah, I slapped my wife around 6 days ago. I'm gonna eat this fried bologna pie because nothing in like my professional life is going to change from this. And thus far, the facts have borne that out. Every actual corporate entity connected to White has either passed the buck or stonewalled. And there's thus far, there are no real consequences. I mean, Endeavor stock took a surprising hit. You know, it dropped like 6%. Within 20
later that day.
Yeah, but recovered later that day. And I don't think you're going to go broke betting on MMA fans' willingness to not only sweep this kind of thing under the rug, but sort of be heartened by it and see White as even more of a hero figure. I mean, several UFC fighters took the opportunity to show their entire asses on social media, to say nothing of the fan base. There's a poll on the Sherdog front page right now. What do you think should happen to Dana White for this? I think there were 5 options, like fired, suspended, fined, demoted, these things. About a third of them were saying nothing at all. And for a third of them,
46% of voters combined right this second say do nothing or I'm ambivalent. 46% of the voters. And there are a lot of votes cast. Sorry to cut you off there, but that's
as much as I'm not surprised, it's disheartening to hear that level of apathy. I'm particularly, disturbed by the lack of response from Disney. That's the entity that I'm really like, these guys, like, nothing. This was the same company that, like, a call from Mickey Mouse to Governor Gavin Newsom in California stopped the Tachi Palace show that was going to take place during the pandemic. Disney fired James Gunn from the Marvel Cinematic Universe for tweets that they knew about that were like 10 years prior to him being employed at all from a Disney subsidiary. They got rid of Gina Carano for her tweets, and
for mean tweets and anti-vax crap.
Believe me, I am in no way aligning myself with Gina Carano. But let's look at her Twitter, James Gunn's Twitter, and Dana White physically assaulting his wife. I mean, we're not even going to say a thing. We're not going to say a thing. And to me, the message feels very simple. We care about the money. We care about the public image to an extent. We care about appearing to be of some sort of nobility, but we don't care about women. That's the message I get. That we do not care about women. So that's what I'm feeling.
I mean, think of the Stephen A. Smith interview. And on if you, I mean, I call it interview.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know what this reminds me a little bit of? The Will Smith slap on Chris Rock, because for them to do nothing when that happens, let Will Smith stay, give him his Oscar, and then have a whole bunch of people cheering. It's Hollywood. I hate to say it, but I live out here, and I know some of the examples you guys gave with Disney and other entities. It depends the size of the person and the status they have. It's like the old saying from a dozen years ago, too big to fail, when Wall Street was bailed out. And when banks get bailed out now, whatever they lose, they get it right back from the Treasury. I think that a while after, a few days after the Will Smith slap, they made a comment and they kind of put in some kind of loose sanctions, or I guess they said he's not going to be able to go to a ceremony.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
they
win an
banned
award
him for like the next 10 years
Yeah,
or something.
something.
Right. So it wasn't just loose sanction. It was something, right? But it was a little bit delayed. I think the difference is that they probably, I get the feeling almost like they were looking at public outcry and maybe talked to a bunch of people and started to realize, okay, we're really looking sleazy. I mean, Hollywood already doesn't get a lot of respect, or people doesn't look up to Hollywood as far as a virtuous industry. But I think with this, if they would have left that unpunished, then it would have been a problem. I think in this particular case, I feel like, I mean, William Morris Endeavor Group, again, is Hollywood. This is like really, really old Hollywood. And I think that years ago, it's one thing if this would have been left undone because hardly anyone could see it because there was no internet. But I think they're almost in that, still in that mode from the 1970s and 80s and 60s, which is that, well, no one important knows or cares about this. And even though everyone saw it on TMZ, I think they're really maybe feeling like, you know, we don't care. This doesn't bother us, so it shouldn't bother you. You guys are fight fans. You guys are tough. You guys are used to seeing people struck and smacked. So I have a feeling they do want to let this go. And not only that, but it may be that if they say something to Dana might say, hey, go ahead and put your own guy as the president then and flush this whole organization down the toilet. Dana may have told them, you give me any hassle, I'll leave on a dime. I don't need this. I have the money. So whatever the situation is, it does seem like they're really dragging their feet. And the way it looks is they're not going to do anything. And that wouldn't surprise me. And that would be wrong, 100%.
Colin, I'm glad that you brought up the Will Smith thing, because I in the moment, I thought about that. I thought about the responses to both situations from some of the same people and some of the same circles. And they couldn't be more contrasted. Now, granted, he was allowed to finish the rest of the ceremony and he accepted his award and partied like nothing happened later that night. But he did feel backlash on a very real level afterwards.
He did get fired from some movies.
Yeah, there were several projects of his that dropped out instantly. Like by the next day, I think the sequel to another Bad Boy sequel was at least postponed. A sequel to Bright was stopped. It was some other show that I think he was executive producing that they stopped that. There were ramifications from a professional standpoint that Will Smith is now just kind of catching up to. And in his first movie coming out since then. But Professional Slap League, it's been delayed a week without any real statement. So there has effectively been nothing. These situations couldn't be any further apart. We saw two grown men. One said something about the other one's wife, and he responded in an immature fashion. Reacted the way he did, and that incident was that. Then we have a husband going after his wife after a pretty, granted she was wrong for slapping him, but he like literally tried to attack her afterward. And we get nothing. We don't get a statement. We get nothing. I'm thinking of was who was managing Kanye West? Was that CAA or WME that when he started going off the deep end with his anti-Semitic rants and stuff, that he was dropped? Like a similar entity dropped him instantly when he starts spouting off some crazy stuff.
Yeah,
it was
done actual physical harm. Yeah. And nothing's done.
Do you guys think it's possible that WME may feel the general public believes that Dana White is 100% the person that runs UFC and makes these decisions, and that they therefore would feel that if the public believes that Dana White is the managing partner, which couldn't be further from the truth, of WME and the UFC, maybe they feel, well, he's the owner. How can there be any punishment laid out to him? We wouldn't want to burst that bubble if all of you guys out there feel he's the owner. The owner's not going to punish himself. Done deal.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily that, but there is a thread that is very important here that you're getting to. It's the impressions of the public and the masses and the what have you. Is WME and the powers that be are clearly monitoring, and they would be insane not to. Like there's no way they're not paying attention. But the sentiment, the public sentiment, is not overwhelmingly in favor or against or this or the positions are 46% of the Sherdog voters that are generally hardcore MMA fans say do nothing or I'm ambivalent about handling Dana White. And the options weren't all fire him. Some of them was like, fine or suspension or whatever. So it wasn't a draconian kind of, behead him type of poll. It's Sean O'Malley gets up there and makes a joke about it. Jamal Hill says, yeah, I'd strike her too, or things like that, which, by the way, guys, it might be, and I say this with hyperbole, knowing that it's hyperbolic for the sake of hyperbole. The craziest thing is that these people are bad-mouthing Dana White's wife. She's still his wife, you morons. You're saying I'd beat her too or whatever. She'd have it coming. Any of that stuff. She is still his wife. You're still talking about the mother of his children. Even if you're siding with your boss, it's not like she's some random person. She's a very important person in a very, in I don't know, the subject's life. So how is it that fighters, and this may be a question that doesn't need an answer. How is it that fighters think that by issuing a stance in favor of White against his wife is any possible brownie points favorable? Anything. How is it that's not a positive stance to take? Yeah, if she were my wife, I'd do that too. Or any number of insane statements that are just mind-numbing and like borderline abusive. And you're muted. It's just stunning how this is attacked.
Jamal Hill clearly trying to negotiate for pay-per-view points in his next fight. Isn't it easier to just shut up? Isn't it just easier? Get your black belt and shutting the fuck up.
Thank you.
Just get your black belt and shutting the fuck up. Sometimes you can just be quiet. Like, thank God for Dustin Poirier to be asked a question about his take on the situation. You should never put your hands on your wife. Yeah, I don't know what else to say after that.
Yeah, there was no but. There was no
no qualification for that statement.
No.
Just simply, yeah, you shouldn't do that. And then to acknowledge like that he does not have the answer about what to do with Dana. Because quite frankly, I don't have the answer either. No. I don't want to just blanket say, take his job and all. I understand there are nuances to situations, but something has to happen. Something, at least, they're not even pretending.
No. Yeah, unless I was surprised.
Was the bologna pie the punishment? I don't know.
I thought it could have been hot sauce, but he didn't take that opportunity to do that.
What is like TBS didn't even say that they were moving the show.
They just put this. They took the website down for like
I'm talking about Dana White's Power Slap League. What TBS, who was the broadcasting partner of this arrangement, is there was public tweets and all this kind of stuff, and then it just kind of disappeared for like a day, and then it came back the 18th instead of the 11th. No statement, no notice, no notification. The Power Slap League site was taken down briefly. I checked myself, and then it wasn't anymore, and then it was back to status quo, as if nothing had ever happened. Because, I mean, Colin, you're right. Nothing is going to happen. And that makes my head just, brain fluid wants to leak out my ears. That how can all of these people decide together, let's not say anything?
Yeah.
And that's the end of it.
Doesn't seem right, Jay. I agree. It doesn't. It seems, something's wrong.
I'm not calling for Dana's head here, but
just something.
There should be some repercussions for this when you're a public figure of that stature with that much power, and considering the issues that are plaguing this sport.
Oh my God!
At a fundamental level right now, that some statement needs to be made that this is not acceptable behavior.
I mean, do you sorry to interrupt you, Ann. Do you think maybe that this K-fob, as they would call it in pro wrestling, is so much in place that Endeavor is saying, look, we really don't want 12-year-olds and 18-year-olds to think that Dana's not in charge. We can't do anything because then everyone will think he's not in charge. I don't know. It's stupid.
Because, the most fans of anything, in particular combat sports fans, are stupid. It wouldn't matter if a monkey in a tuxedo was standing at the podium. If they got to turn on the TV every Saturday and see people hit each other for money, it wouldn't matter. They
believe he was in charge. Yeah, I agree.
So I think, and if that's a consideration that's going on in the offices of Endeavor or at any high level at ESPN or Disney, well, those people are a lot stupider than we were previously thinking. Like then there is a serious lack of intelligence at the top if that is the consideration, because that is a really stupid fucking thing to allow this sort of thing to just roll over and because quite honestly, this makes the sport look worse.
Yeah, 100%.
Right now, we've got Phil Baroni, a notable fighter that wasn't that long ago competing, and is competing in all who's who of organizations. This man is in jail in Mexico right now for allegedly killing his girlfriend. We've got fighters. I forget the
Cain Carrizosa.
Exactly.
Yeah. We've
got fighters on a regular basis that have domestic violence issues going on. John Jones was just had his daughters pleading for police help in Las Vegas after he was inducted into the Hall of Fame. The aforementioned BJ Penn. There are a considerable amount of issues in this sport when it comes to the way women are treated, when it comes to violence against women. Even when we look at even the way like Dana has even talked about Chris Cyborg, and then like some of the verbiage used towards women is not in line with being moral, decent, or human even in a lot of cases. So this is a time where a statement needs to be made.
I agree.
Something.
I of all of the things that have come out this past week, Luke Thomas taking about 5 minutes to speak to young men about this situation is the most powerful and poignant. If you haven't heard it, I mean, why would we not link somebody else? No, we might link that particular statement he made. It was very powerful. It was very important, and it should have been not Luke Thomas, media guy, saying it. It should have been, I don't know, UFC president Dana White saying these things. Anybody, any person that is involved in this situation.
Yeah, I'm feeling like this sport is at a free for all right now.
Yeah.
Just was it last week? I think we were talking about all these fighters like taking pictures and posing with people who are accused of human trafficking.
Oh yeah.
We're talking about fighters that are buddy and smiling at kids' birthday parties for
genocidal warlords,
dictators. Like,
I mean,
this is the sort of behavior that's allowed
not
to
jump
run
the agenda, but
Please.
Jair Bolsonaro is staying at Jose Aldo's house right now while like the military like tries to run a coup in his country.
Yeah. And by the way, actually, and this just broke since we started recording. Right now, his wife is being accused of receiving COVID funds that were intended for poor families in Brazil. So
Aldo's?
Yeah, Aldo's wife. Yeah. So this is, there are fundamental issues plaguing this sport and the people in it. It would be nice if hitting women was not acceptable. Some line was drawn. Fellas, so power slap. I mean, not a real sport. Very poorly named in Dana White's power slap. Should this, I mean, in light of the fact that this is not like a real thing, as far as genuine competition is concerned, that this is also on the heels of him literally power slapping his spouse. Should this still be going on?
I have 2 words: Batgirl it. Just throw in the outside garbage.
It was a terrible idea to start with, but up until Dana's incident with slapping his wife, I was of the opinion that it should have been allowed to succeed or fail on its own merits as an entertainment venture, and I just very much looked forward to not talking or thinking about it. Now, I would say the optics are bad, but apparently we're in the post-optics era, where if you are brazen enough, you can just walk along as if nothing happened and kind of shrug. And again, in a particular case like this, bet on a majority, or at least a plurality, of combat sports fans to either shrug along with you or actively support and condone. And hell, in the end, this isn't going to hurt Slap League's viability. It's going to succeed or fail because it's stupid, or because it's stupid in a way that like perversely appeals to a particular kind of fan.
I'm going to ask this, Colin and Ant. I'll ask Colin, you can answer this first. Did this incident, we'll just call it incident to keep it brief, actually improve the drawing power and ratings of this first episode of White Power Slap League? Are more people going to watch this stupid show because of this news and drama about it? Do you think that the curiosity, or is it so far over here that no?
That is a great question, Jay. And that's why initially, even though I put it out and no one bid on it, and I'm not sure I'm biting on it, the fact of this being set up to do precisely that. And I do highly doubt it was, but it's just one of the first thoughts that came to me. It's amazing. A slap, and he's got a slap fighting league. Nevertheless, I don't know that this incident is going to make people more curious about it. I would think not. I think that like other ideas, like combining arm wrestling with MMA, where you got to come in and do an
arm.
You're right. You got to do an arm wrestling match, and then you go jump in the cage, or at least maybe a grappling match with arm wrestling, or how about the team MMA, tag team MMA, or 4 guys running at each other in Turkey or wherever the hell that is. I think that this idea is not going to capture a huge chunk of the MMA audience. I think it will capture some. I think the younger audiences. I think that the concept of it being unprotected while someone strikes you in the face, and you notice a lot of these guys, it's a lot of heavyweights, and a lot of guys are getting their palm in their, and it's not just going like the hands. They're getting hard shots, like Boss Rutan back in the Pancrase days. And so this is a crazy thing. I guess there's 2 issues. Should it go on? And the concept to me, I'm not a fan of. I wouldn't watch it. And should it go on? I am somewhat of a legal expert, having either had relatives or friends or myself in small legal issues over the years, not recently, fortunately. But I will say this: to stop someone's business venture because of impropriety, a bad decision, technically an assault on your wife, I don't know that can legally be easily done, unless it were by TBS, who says, you know what, in light of this, we're not going to support you. But then Dana could shop that around for different channels, and he'd get a taker like that. So you can't really stop a business venture unless every channel out there were to agree they're not going to let Dana on, and that's not going to happen. So I think that would be very difficult, and you can't do that. I think if you could, or if somehow Endeavor were to say, you know what, we don't, in light of you doing this, now we've decided it's a conflict of interest with your contract, and we don't want you to do it. We're telling you not to do it. And if you do this slap thing, then you could be the CEO in the face of slap fighting because you're out of here. That could be done, I suppose.
And is Dana White's Power Slap League destined for CMT?
Yeah, I mean, this would be perfect for Spike TV if that was still around, like or Fuel TV or something like that.
Yes.
I mean, the concept itself is completely ludicrous. It's completely stupid. And from just looking at it like a sport, no, it should not happen. It should not be sanctioned by an athletic commission. That is absolutely nuts. Something that involves zero defense, like you get penalized for trying to not get hit. This should be outside of the scope of any athletic commission. I will say, like, I'm not opposed to it existing, because there was very similar complaints about mixed martial arts when it was first coming up about, oh, this shouldn't exist because it offends my sensibilities. Like, I'm not that guy. But I will say it's something separate than actual, skilled fighting. That's for sure. That's its own offshoot of some sort of twisted brand of entertainment. Now, in light of what's going on with the man in charge of this, not only is the league with a very unfortunate name, it also it's also being run by a person who seems to practice with his wife. I mean,
maybe he was trying to shop at the Oxygen on New Year's Eve.
And if you are TBS, if you're Turner Networks, and this is the programming that you were going to have, and you decide, okay, well, we're going to lose X amount of money, but we got to get this out of here because this doesn't look good. I'm not worried about what another channel is going to do. I'm not worried about another channel picking up this opportunity, because now you've inherited that problem. Now let that bad press go to their doorstep. Warner picks it up, and now it's an issue, or whatever channels are associated with Universal or Viacom or something. Now they have this problem. It's up to the corporate entities, up to the people in charge of these things to make the decisions for the best of their company. And it probably doesn't suit your brand very well to have a power slapper in the home running a power slap league. Probably not the best look, gentlemen. So if that's a consideration, yet again, that's a really stupid thing to consider.
It's so strange, guys. I enjoy, and so I guess by the definition, I like night fighting, where the guys are suited up and they're smacking each other, and they're it's like MMA with swords.
M1 did that, right?
Yeah, M1 did that for a while. I enjoy Lethway, which is Muay Thai with headbutts. But I love Fight Circus, and they literally make up rules that night where, like, here's a tire, just a tire from some truck, and it's going to be the empty tire, the wheel's gone, and we're going to sit it in the cage. You're going to stick your left foot in, each of you, and you're going to put on boxing gloves and nail each other. Fight Circus, sign me all of the way up for all of that, but I cannot get on board with Power Slap. And I don't know. Maybe it's the purist in me.
I mean, it's not a martial art.
I think that's not a martial art at all. That's what it is, because it's not. It's about skill, but it's not about offense and defense.
Yeah, no.
It's about
slapping someone.
Yeah,
as hard as you possibly can. Like,
it's about what did Five Fingers say to the face. That's it.
Yeah,
that's all it is.
I predict, and I think I said this on Twitter when this was first announced. Like, I think this is going to be a popular thing amongst like frat boys. This is the sort of it appealed to a very specific, quite frankly, like silly segment of society. And this will be a drunken game. Like, I guarantee you, if you go into a college bar 6 months from now, they're going to be slapping each other and laughing about it. And it's going to be drinking games associated with it. That's the sort of appeal that this thing will have. And I'll throw this one out there before we move on to some segments that you probably thought we forgot about, but we will get to our normal couple segments. Will you be watching at all?
No, I will not be tuning in. I have, maybe to the Sherdog.com's detriment, I have intentionally decided, when I'm covering news, I'm not going to write a story about slap fighting. It is not in my purview of mixed martial arts or kickboxing or boxing or grappling or Fight Circus or Muay Thai or Lethway, or I could keep on listing names. It's not there. So, no.
Yeah, I'm the same. I feel about it the same way I feel when people ask me, are you going to watch, Jake Paul versus Tyron Woodley? Are you going to watch Floyd Mayweather versus Tenzin Nasukawa? I'm like, I don't have enough time and mental bandwidth to watch as much good boxing as I want to. Like, if I have time to watch slap fighting, I have time to go to the gym or read a book or have a nice dinner with my wife. And fortunately, I can't imagine myself being in a position where I'd have to deal with it professionally. I mean, if I get a direct order to write something about it, I certainly will, but I'm looking forward right now to being able to ignore it. Like after this show, hopefully I won't even have to think about it much more, kind of go back to the stuff I actually enjoy, spending my thought on.
Colin, are you checking it out at all?
Yeah,
we won't judge you, by the way.
What's that?
There's no judgment in this dojo.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I appreciate that. No, I would say if I was, but no, I was mentioning before, it's not something I would want to do or watch. I feel that if it takes off and guys in bars and frats are doing it, that can turn into be a disaster when someone gets their tooth knocked out or their nose broken or someone has a claw and nails and slices up a guy's face and he's got a big scar coming down his jaw. All bad. I think they're having, am I wrong, or are they having women in this also?
Yeah, women are competing.
So, so that's also another really, talk about, I hate to say it, but with all respect to them, talk about lunatic fringe, and
they brought in Tony Lopez, dudes. Tony Lopez is in.
Oh my gosh! Well, Tony grinds. That guy's got to be as old as me almost. So he's not afraid of anything. You can't scare. Tony Lopez is the real life. I forget that character actor who's actually kind of not a big guy, but the guy that has all the scars on his face. I can't remember his name. Anyway, he's
Tommy Flanagan with a Glasgow Kiss.
No, Hispanic guy that has a lot of scars.
Oh, Danny Trejo. Yeah.
Tony Lopez is the real life Danny Trejo.
If Danny Trejo was like 6'6",
right?
Danny Trejo and Saget had a kid.
There you go. Right. And so, but yeah, no, it's not at all. Not for me. I won't be watching it. I don't even think Robin Black would cover it if you gave him a chance and a paycheck. And nothing against Robin. He's awesome. Lethway is cutting edge, but it's very different. Lethway, the sport of 9 limbs, is actually interesting. The headbutts make it a little bit crazy, but I would bet Robin would even say slap fighting is nothing.
It's something totally different. Like we're talking about martial arts that may not be to your liking, and a slapping competition that has no sort of nuance to it. It's the slapping competition. I mean the one positive I'll take away from the existence of the Power Slap League is that Forrest Griffin has steady employment.
Yes, that's exactly what I hope you were going to say.
That's it. That's the only thing I'm taking away from this as a positive. All right, fellas. Well, Ben may not want to watch Jake Paul versus your favorite names of yesteryear in the boxing ring, but will you be watching Jake Paul, MMA fighter? He signed a contract with PFL. Plans to fight in mixed martial arts. Actually, immediately threw a challenge out to Nate Diaz to compete in both boxing and MMA. Fellas, how do we see this going? Does the Jake Paul experiment work in MMA?
It works depending on your definition of work. If by works, do you mean Jake Paul becomes a legitimately accomplished and competitive MMA fighter? Probably not. If by works, do you mean he maintains interest in PFL for another season after Kayla Harrison lost and the organization is frankly going to be a little bit adrift for something to hook its star to? Yeah. Like Jake Paul just kind of saved PFL. It ironically, in the same season that PFL really outdid itself in terms of talent on the roster and actual accomplishments of its fighters. I mean, Rob Wilkinson was Sherdog's comeback fighter of the year, and Olivier Aubin-Mercier was in the top 5 of the voting for that as well. They had a good season this year, except for one little thing. The star that they've been pushing for 3 years now took a loss, and they're all of a sudden just a money sink. This was exactly the kind of thing they needed to spur some kind of interest. Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz, like whether we think it's like an eye-rolly thing or not, is exactly the kind of thing that will pull some casual MMA fan eyes to PFL. So if any of the things that he's talking about doing play out, yeah, it's going to be a success.
I'm going to push back on that. And the reason I'm going to push back on that is because Jake Paul is an 0-0 MMA fighter, without, pushing past the whole high school wrestler, whatever nonsense that he claims he has. He can't, he's not going to bring in Bud Crawford to MMA with him. And I'm saying that as a verb, which it isn't. And that's the problem, because he's going to be, if he wants this to work the way he thinks it's going to work, he's going to fight Ben Askren when Ben Askren can wrestle him. He's going to fight Nate Diaz, depending on what the hell he wants to do, when Nate can throw up triangles and kick him or anything. I mean, Diaz don't kick, but my point is he's going to be fighting these experienced MMA fighters in their world. And
if he does, he's going to get his ass kicked. I explicitly said that's not tied to my idea of success.
No. Here's my beyond that. Before we even get there, I don't think that they'll be able to sanction these fights. I don't think an actual commission would say, yes, Nate Diaz, with all of his accomplishments, is going to fight 0-0 boxer Paul. I don't even. I know the commissions are wobbly. I know the commissions are kind of crappy. But I think
it's going to be New York that decided it was too dangerous for Paul Felder to fight.
Because he was too low in the rankings. He was number 12 when Khabib was happening. I just don't see, and you can't have him fight PFL Challenger Series 7 winner Andrea Stankovic. That's not Jake Paul, Logan Paul, whatever opponents. It has to be a name. And it can't be a name or he's going to die. And you only get one of those. This is Contra. You have one life.
You push Ben, I'm going to push you, Jay. I firmly disagree that Jake Paul, that this is going to be that sort of thing with Jake Paul. Jake Paul went to boxing to fight MMA fighters. He is going to go into MMA to fight boxers. That's what's going to happen. And even if he did fight MMA fighters, a commission will sanction it. Depending on where they go, it will be sanctioned. We have seen some absolute ludicrous fights being made in multiple organizations with the blessing of athletic commissions that just realized that Doug Crosby is a moron. They just realized this, and he's been screwing things up for 15 years. They will allow anything to happen if it gets them paid in their state. I guarantee you, though, Jake Paul is not going to be fighting Ben Askren in MMA. He is not going to be fighting that sort of guy. He is going to fight a boxer.
Paulie Malignaggi.
Yeah, he's going to fight a Paulie Malignaggi. He's going to fight Adrian Bronner. He's going to fight a boxer of note that has fuck all about what takedown defense is. That's what's going to happen. And his background in high school wrestling, whatever, is going to be very useful against someone who has no idea what that is. And that's what's going to happen.
And Jake, if you're having trouble getting sanctioned, your organization's in New York, you're from Ohio. Here, this is Texas. Come this way. When you can see me, make a left. Louisiana's right there.
Yeah. And if you keep
they
going,
would let you fight.
Florida will take you too.
Yeah, they would let you fight a fucking alligator.
Yeah. So I like it that are we done, Answer?
Oh no. Oh, Colin, take it away, man.
So yeah, all you guys made great points, and I really am thinking about various different permutations of what can happen. I actually hadn't even thought, to your credit, Ant, about the fact that he would go in, excuse me, and that he'd be fighting guys with absolutely no ground game. I mean, in all honesty, I think there'd be some pushback if that happens. There would really be, I think, some backlash if that happens. Could it still happen? For sure, it could. But in all honesty, I really feel like I hope that is not their plan. Obviously, are they going to face the toughest guys in the world immediately no. But and I'm going to come back around to that. But first of all, I think Jake would love it if he could weigh in at like 185 or even 205 and be going against a guy 20 pounds less than him or 30 pounds less than him. That no athletic commission is going to allow that. Now, could you take someone like Nate Diaz, and for a big enough paycheck, Nate Diaz will eat hamburgers all day and pizza all night and come in at 190 maybe, although I don't even know if Nate could get to be that heavy probably. But I think that he's going to be facing tomato cans early on, but at some point that's going to have to stop. And I also think that if PFL allows ridiculously lopsided Jake Paul fights right from the beginning, they're going to lose some credibility. Now, at this point, half MMA fans don't even know who they are, so they may be thinking, what credibility can we lose? Everyone's going to be excited to see Jake Paul. But I have a feeling that because Jake is young, because his boxing is better than arguably a fair amount of MMA fighters in major organizations, and he has a little bit of wrestling and he's a strong guy, I really believe he thinks he can maybe do some damage and that he may be fighting a couple of bums early on, but may have a goal to somehow maybe accomplish something. But yeah, if it's super lopsided fights, I think he's going to lose some fans, and I'm not a huge fan of his anyway. But if it's ridiculously lopsided fights where the people have no ground game at all, then I don't even know if I'll tune in. If I see one of those, I probably wouldn't tune into the next one.
The biggest problem is that these are pay-per-view events. In theory, these are supposed to be pay-per-view events, so you can't put him against a 1-on-1 Andrea Stankovic, who is a guy that won on Challenger Series. So I keep naming him because he's the only guy in the close to the weight. So you have to have somebody that can sell, and you can't put him. I mean, Omari Akhmedov would ruin his life, and he's not the hottest, greatest, whatever. You can't give him somebody, and you have to give him somebody that you can sell with. So they like Paul by himself, as we've seen so far, is not an ultimate golden goose right now. Like the Woodley fights were whatever. The second Woodley fight was a disaster according to some metrics. So Paul by himself doesn't sell, and he can't carry it if he's fighting a tomato can. So I'm with you, Colin. He needs to fight those people if he wants to actually figure things out and grow like a fighter, but he can't because of his celebrity status. Like he's the Sean O'Malley. Give me a second. In that he just beat Peter Yan. He will never be able to go down and fight Hani Yahya. Just won't happen. And I love Hani Yahya. He's one of my favorite under over both achievers at the same time. Just Paul is here and he's a pay-per-view guy. So I think, and PFL is allegedly throwing money at him. I don't know what or how or anything like that. But I'm so concerned. I'm going to make a bold prediction. He doesn't fight.
That honestly wouldn't surprise me if he did. But Jay, Jay and Colin, I think we're looking at this from inside of our bubble too much. True. Because you can put Jake Paul on pay-per-view, and we're not going to be the ones buying it. If they get someone who appeals to our taste, and he's against them, yeah, you might get our dollars that way. But the kids that follow him and his brother on YouTube.
Do you give him like a YouTuber, or do you give him like Fame as the rapper or something? Is that where you're going? Because
no,
you're
not
onto
even
something.
Well, that
you're onto something there.
But just his name right there attracts a crowd that we aren't a part of. That attracts a crowd, and I really think there's something to the not necessarily going after the appropriate names in mixed martial arts and going after adjacent sports like boxing or kickboxing that you can get. You can get like I don't know, pull out a notable boxer in the recent past, like Robert Guerrero or something like that. That you might be able to dig him up and say, "Hey, you wanna fight this guy who's not a real fighter? Okay, sign me up. Where's the money?" And if you want to go to MMA fighters, you mean to think like a guy like say a Jamie Varner doesn't think that he can just get off the couch and beat Jake Paul?
Right.
there are enough people out there where this can work and it can happen, and it might be a total farce. It might be a total joke, but it can happen.
How about Anderson Silva? Sorry about that, Ant. How about Anderson Silva?
I thought of that and I pictured the front kick in my mind.
Oh, he would die. He would, like that. Let Anderson Silva once again be the end boss. But by then he'll be like 62. So yeah, so Jake probably will win.
Let's put on Hopkins up to throw him in there.
Exactly. There are names out there that work that can, and that's why I said like Adrian Bronner, like a name like that, that you can that will appeal to some legitimate segment of fight fans that will take care of the extra buys that all the kids that are begging their parents for their credit card won't cover. This
Bring in Ray Mercer. How about Ray Mercer? He's 58 years old.
Exactly. Those are the sort of things. There are a plethora of options. We said his name several times already, and we do know that he was talking about fighting at some point when he's not running for some ill-fated campaign to take office.
Don't do it.
You know what?
Don't
BJ
do it.
Penn, do it.
No. Make him fight Tito. At least the size.
He don't want to be in it. The thing is, Tito's way too big. And way too
BJ Penn and Tito Ortiz
fighter.
weigh within 15 pounds of each other right now.
Yeah, it's not happening.
Actually, you got me there. Yeah, actually.
Yeah, that's not happening. But I think someone like BJ Penn would happily suit up, and it wouldn't take much for a commission to go ahead and do what they shouldn't and sanction him for this. Right. Like, it can happen.
How about Chael?
No, Chael's too recent. He's too recent. He's too recent on fighting. He's too big. The guy walks around over 200 pounds.
Chael would make us miserable.
Like,
he would sell so well. Yes, that's the thing. Do you think retired, old retired? Do you think, because I feel like for this to work, for PFL to have any shot of this situation going, because it can't be a one-off deal if they're allegedly committing to 2 Jake Paul pay-per-views in 2023. You have to go with, I'm absolutely with you guys. Beatable, very beatable, but it can't be too small because the commission thing. We need, like, we could have a show about like how, like a draft almost to figure out who the hell the guy's going to fight.
I mean, obviously we're not talking about like, a retired flyweight or something like that.
No,
but anyone keep like Tyron Woodley he fought his whole MMA career at 170, probably walked around about 185 or something like that. He essentially just didn't cut weight to fight Paul. Like that's the sort of range we're looking at. Someone who doesn't have to cut weight to be close enough to his weight.
Well, Uriah Hall wants to do boxing.
He would fight Uriah Hall in boxing. He would not fight him in in MMA. Like that's still too recent and too good of a fighter to be in this Jake Paul sphere in the cage. He boxes Uriah Hall. He doesn't.
How about King Mo Lawal?
He has grown since he retired. I like it.
But his wrestling background is way too extensive. It's going to be someone whose grappling was like a secondary thing, or if they're around the same size. But if they are a good grappler, they got to be much smaller.
He's got a name.
Watching the Bellator Rise and New Year's Eve thing, because everybody had to be masked, I was like, holy shit, what happened to Antonio McKee? And then I realized that was Rampage Jackson. It's like I was like, you cannot even call your shit Team Body Shop anymore because you're looking fat as hell. But no, it was Rampage. I wonder if Rampage. No, never mind. Rampage can't get down to anything.
How about Tony Lopez take a break from the slap fighting and jump into the PFL for a one-off?
You know what?
Tony Lopez finally got paid like big money. I wouldn't be mad, but I think he's too big, though. He's just too physically large.
Or maybe Tommy Fury follows him into MMA.
See, now you're onto something.
And you just put Paul versus Fury on the poster?
Yes, that's exactly what you do. Yeah. And people go, and they go, wait a second, in MMA? Wait a second, and they buy, and then they don't. That's how pay-per-view, that's how PFL gets their 18 buys for that event.
Hey, Lauren Mack, you just like, followed me on LinkedIn. Hey,
Aw.
come on, that one's for free, man. Hit me up. I got more ideas. Like that's really what we have to do for this to work. But the thing is, PFL needs the eyeballs.
Yes.
They're trying to attract pay-per-view business. They don't give a damn where the money comes from, as long as they have the money. They couldn't care if it was a 12-year-old who had no idea about the subtleties in mixed martial arts, or if it was us. As long as they have the money, that's what matters. So Jake Paul is, if he actually steps into the cage, and I think, Jay, that is a thing to consider, that this may not happen. But if it does happen, there are many ways to get it done. Fellas, before we totally run out of time here, let's go ahead and put some time on the clock. I'm going to give you guys 10 seconds to answer a couple of questions. Let's see here. Colin, I'll start with you. Tatiana Suarez in February is scheduled to come back at flyweight. Do you think 125 is the right call for her?
I think it is, but not because she had a choice. I think she grew out of 115. She was a huge strawweight, and this is her only choice.
All right.
Yeah.
Good one. And respect for the clock. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That only happens
I don't
the
do
first
that
time
very
someone's
often.
on the show. Yeah.
Bring me back. Bring me back.
I know. At the moment someone comes back for the second time, no respect for the clock, because they see how we
they're
disrespect
comfortable.
the
They're
clock.
like,
Yeah, they're like, I'm good with these guys. All right, Jay, I'm going to ask you something next.
shoot.
Daniel Cormier believes Alexander Volkanovski beating Islam Makhachev will be the biggest upset in UFC history. Is he right?
Hold on. Hang on. There it is.
I mean, that coming from a guy that once fought Patrick Cummins in the UFC.
Yeah.
Like, I can't think of, okay, this is going to be the meanest thing I'm going to say in a long time on the show. I cannot think of a person that is more plugged in, yet completely out of touch with the thing he is plugged into.
I like that. That's unique.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance of informed and just total fanboy. But I mean, if anything, we know he fanboys out.
I know he's
for a
got the
Dagestani
Islam
wrestler.
thing, but
Yeah.
even that, to say that about Volkanovski,
But that's the only reason why he said that. The only reason why, because Islam's his boy.
It's promotional hype. It just feels more hype than it feels like an actual sentence that a person would go, yeah, I believe that. I stand by my words that I just fell out of my face hole.
See, I wouldn't even call it promotional hyperbole. That's friend talk.
I guess.
Yeah, that's friend talk. That's all that is. All right, Ben, go ahead and ask you something as well. Agent McKee claimed he spent $100,000 on his outfit for Bellator versus Ryzen. Should financial counseling be part of his training?
Someone needs to take that dude's credit cards and freeze him in a block of ice in the freezer or some shit. Because the thing didn't even look that good. It looked like it came from Spencer's Gifts. What the fuck, dude? You could have gotten that thing for like $90.
It was like Ronin on Wish.
It did. It looked like a really bad Shredder costume.
Just need to get a colander for his face, and then like he's the Shredder.
And like last week, we were talking about him like potentially gassing out and stuff. And if did you not learn anything from Deontay Wilder? Did you not learn anything?
Yeah, don't wear an outfit that's so heavy that it ruins your chance to win.
Like,
It is an actual really interesting question to think if training for combat sports should include some sort of a not classroom but financial aspect, or because like some of these fighters are coming out of like high school, some of them are coming out of college, whatever. They don't know and they don't think about it. Like
Bryce Mitchell was just talking about, he had like a couple grand in his account.
Yes.
And pretty much was forced to take a fight while he had the flu. So like this is something that is a real thing. Like NBA players, NFL players, they have like rookie seminars and stuff where they learn some of the basics about just managing the people and the money around you and sort of the trappings of success. So but
Bryce Mitchell got $100,000 in bonuses in 2019 alone.
Yeah, I mean I'll tell you what. I'll let you guys know if I see AJ McKee flying around in Lamborghinis and stuff, walking around in a samurai suit. Because like his gym is only like a few minutes from my house, so I'm sure you'll see it around if he's spending too much money. All right, Jay, can you ask me a question so I don't sound like a crazy person?
I'd be glad to. Henry Cejudo at the LFA show this weekend said, and he said this before, and he said this again, confirmed that he's fighting Aljamain Sterling in March. Gun to your head, Ant. Who you got?
I got to go with the guy who's fought in recent memory. Aljo, who's grossly underrated, is the naturally bigger guy and so versatile. I got to give it to Aljo. What I'm not looking forward to is the ridiculously racist build up to this fight between both of them. This is this is going to be a dumpster fire. Like,
all right, you real quick, you two, show of hands. Aljamain Sterling win,
Yeah, I got Aljo.
or okay, I don't have to ask that Henry Cejudo then. Okay,
no.
the eyes
you
have
can
it.
ask just to highlight how little faith we have in that happening. So
Anybody think Henry Cejudo's going to win? Going once, going twice.
And not to discredit him, because he's an amazing fighter.
Look at what's all on the line for him too. If he wins, it's insane.
Yeah. But he hasn't fought for what, 2.5 years? Like,
right.
Sorry, hard to have faith in you under those circumstances. All right, so now it's time to move on to the greatest title segment in all of media history. I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons will share something that surprised us, or ironically did not, since we last met. Jay, what's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Courtesy of the lovely and talented Ben Duffy, mine has changed. The UFC Fight Night 217 headliner between Nasruddin Imavov and Kelvin Gastelum is no longer Nasruddin Imavov versus Kelvin Gastelum. This is breaking news on the show that you'll get tomorrow after, well, people have heard it and know about it. It is now moved to 205 pounds, where Nasruddin Imavov will fight our best pal in the sport, Sean Strickland.
Oh, wow.
Sean Strickland.
Wow.
Jay, is Sean Strickland going to be the first fighter to headline back-to-back UFC events?
I am thinking about it, but he's not. But he, like Royce Gracie, of course. But that was different then. It's
modern day, yes.
We might have to go back to like Tito. I think when Tito jumped and he fought Bader and Rashad back-to-back, and he got that really slick guillotine. But it's not many. There's not many fighters that fight in back-to-back cards. Like Cynthia Calvillo did it in 2 pay-per-views.
Chris Lieben did it once.
Yeah, Lieben did it.
Headline.
Yeah, that's why I know.
Yeah,
I'm just talking about in general. So it's how rare it is. So yeah, this is a very interesting thing that the fight is at 205, by the way, because it's now Monday at now o'clock, and it's fight week. So yeah, Kelvin Gastelum versus Jake Paul. What do you guys think about that one?
No, Imavov versus. Oh yeah.
No,
sorry, you got me.
No. Kelvin might not survive. He might get the thank you for playing check mark, and they let him out of his contract. They did that for like Sarah McMahon and Leslie Smith and Cajun Johnson and.
Yeah, see, me and Colin were actually talking about this a couple days ago on his Twitter space about this. This could be the end of Kelvin Gastelum's run in the UFC, and how even this sort of diminished version of him might still be kind of a marketable figure outside of the UFC. Like I would imagine like he would be a perfect fit into something like BKFC. I imagine that there are interesting fights that you can make for him in Bellator. There are things that can happen with Kelvin Gastelum, and perhaps him being withdrawn from this card, depending on the reason why. I don't know if that's been reported on yet. Obviously, I haven't
injury to his mouth.
Somebody said mouth injury. Yeah.
Oh, okay. The staff came back, or
he tried to eat too big a burrito.
Oh,
that's
He like unhinged his jaws like a python and couldn't get him back shut
or
again.
a hippopotamus.
I'm telling you, that man can eat. That man can wolf down some food. So that would not be that out of the question for him. So I'm really curious what's going to go on with Kelvin post this this fight card kind of playing out, and Strickland at 205. Is he going to make a run at light heavyweight if he comes out with the right result here?
He'll just like take that little bit of clout and take it right back down to 185 with him, I think.
That's what I think, yeah.
But he's a knucklehead enough to try to make this a thing, like or just a Donald Cerrone type, just fight whatever weight class is open and available with a slot for him. He definitely is the type to do that. But interesting news there, and I'm glad we weren't planning on previewing this card coming up Saturday, because this would have blown it up all together. So Go to if Colin, I don't know if your Twitter space, the recording is still available, but
Yes.
check that out. And yeah, a breakdown of that card. Just ignore the main event talk.
Right.
This might be the worst. We say it a lot of the time.
Oh, we say it a lot, so it's just it'll be the worst one until like 2 weeks from now or 3 weeks from now, whatever mundane fight night cards are on the docket.
Yeah.
Are we still going to say what our surprising thing is?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Your turn now, Colin. What's your I'm not surprised Mr. Falcons moment this week?
So Habib Nurmagomedov retiring apparently from MMA coaching and everything to me this makes no sense. Not only did he become, I think, like official assistant head coach to Javier Mendez at AKA, but a lot of these guys are his cousins and guys that he grew up with, and you could tell he really was passionate about being in their corner. And, it seems like he wanted these guys to succeed as much as he did. And I don't understand why he would say, yeah, I'm just going to back out. I'm not going to be in any of my cousins or friends' corner to try to help them and forget it. I mean, he was paying for a lot of their training camps. He was making sure that they ate well and they were relaxed and everything they needed. I mean, I guess he could say my money will still be helping you, but I just won't be there. But then again, is that not being there, or why would he? I don't think he cares about the camera being on him, but why would he not want to corner his actual blood cousins and childhood friends? Maybe you guys read the articles more than I did. And can give me some insight. Was there anything he said about that? Because I'm shocked.
From what I saw from Javier Mendez, it was about time he wanted to spend with his children. It's the same guy who walked away from a potential to be, if he didn't achieve that, he came very close to being the greatest lightweight of all time, and definitely like the best lightweight champion of all time.
Dominant,
because he wanted to honor a commitment to his mother. He wanted to honor his mother's wishes. So when his kids, haven't seen him as much as he'd like, and he might have come home one day and didn't recognize something that his kids did and said, "Hey, I'm missing too much time." And as a father, I can appreciate that. Like, that's the one thing that's more powerful than anything else is the
cats
care
in the
for
cradle.
your family. Yeah, it's the family, it's the home front. So I understand this, and I think this is one of those things where I take him at his word. I think he's really done. Now, maybe when he finds a better balance for his family, that he returns to coaching. And I don't think he's actually really going to be gone totally from coaching. He is a lifelong martial artist. This is a part of who he is. Even if it's teaching his kids how to wrestle or how to kickbox or whatever the case may be, just for their own fitness or self-defense or whatever, he's going to be involved and get that itch again. But right now, traveling across the world every weekend to corner one of your 50 cousins that are high-level fighters and their 30 training partners everywhere and every continent known to man, he wants to come home and spend time with his kids.
Your home country's at war, and travel could be shut down at any moment.
I see that. By the way, Jay, I like that Harry Chapin reference, the cat in the cradle. I got that. That didn't pass on.
Yeah, it's I'm only about 90% sure that he's coming back after that, just after this statement.
Oh yeah.
You can bring it down. I'm still probable on the injury return report for Khabib.
You're going to keep him in the rankings for the time being. All right, Ben. So what's your I'm not surprised, Mr. Falcons moment this week?
Well, I mean, we've spoken a little about Alexander Volkanovski taking on Islam Makhachev already. I have a recent comment here from a member of Volkanovski's current division over which he reigns. He is, of course, the UFC featherweight champion. Says sometime rising contender coming off a loss now, Bryce Mitchell. Volkanovski's contenders are taking each other out. That's what's going on. He's getting paid 100 times what I get paid to fight fuckers that ain't even as tough as I'm fighting. Alexander Volkanovski, he wants to fight easy contenders. Right here, here's someone he can just beat up and say, hey, come on, buddy. I'm easy money. Come on. Bryce Mitchell accusing Alexander Volkanovski of taking the easy fights as he moves up a weight class to take on arguably the best fighter in the sport.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a dude that grew up thinking paint chips were one of the 4 food groups. What the fuck, Bryce Mitchell? Like, every time I think he can't get any stupider, he opens his mouth and some new shit comes out.
Yeah, that was, yeah. Don't know what
just a guy who thought he could carry his power drill on a keychain. So yeah, I mean, he's not always.
He talks like the power drill was in his fucking hat.
That's great.
Yeah, he's
big question on that
little lacking there mentally.
I think, by the way, answering the question that was asked earlier, I think it actually is Tito Ortiz, UFC 50 and UFC 51. He headlined
the
against
War
Patrick.
of 04.
And Cote against against Victor Gracie, who has no known weaknesses.
Love it. Yeah, exactly. Did Jeff Platnick say that? Was it Jeff that said that? I think probably so.
Probably.
Oh man. All right. Well, my I'm not surprised Mr. Falcon's moment comes courtesy of more of the fun news in mixed martial arts, which we alluded to before, but I'll just reiterate and add a little more color to the whole situation. While there are insurrectionists taking over presidential palaces and congressional buildings in Brazil, and riots and all sorts of violence and mayhem breaking out, the person who this is all in favor of, Bolsonaro, who recently just lost the election, his re-election bid, he's actually chilling right now in Orlando at the vacation home of former UFC champion Jose Aldo. From what I understand, he's actually staying in his Minions themed kids room. So just when you think the sport can't get any more ridiculous, there it is. We've got a disgraced politician hiding out of the country with a UFC champion at his vacation home in a cartoon themed bedroom. So,
and he was just hospitalized today, because that's not at all surprising for that guy who was hospitalized after eating shrimp. No, really.
Yeah, I remember
he
that.
Probably ate some Cheerios he found under like a playpen or something.
See, people, Twitter had me good. Aldo Burger.
Love that. Yes.
Oh man.
Hey,
well,
I was gonna say Frank Mir can maybe see if he can eat 10 of them, like on that TV show he was on about 3-4 years ago.
Frank Mir can loan him a kangaroo burger or something.
There we go. Exactly.
So, gentlemen, that's going to do it for this edition of the what is this called? The Living Death Show. I'm so discombobulated right now. This has been an interesting one. So thanks to Colin for jumping on. You can find him at the Twitter handle you see on your screen and the MMA Power Hour. Of course, Ben and Jay, you can catch their work on sherdog.com, and me, you can find my work on MMA On Point. Remember to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. Stay beautiful, stay positive, keep your hands off of women, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.